I've heard lots of you say, oh, well, we're doing this for now. And when this is over, we're going to go back to, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel like I'm not sure what go back to means anymore. And I think a lot of the stuff that we've been doing over the last 4, 5, 6 months are going to become a part of our everyday. So just wanted to have you all share, like, what are some of the things that you're doing now that you foresee needing to stay in place for the long haul, or things that you need help with adapting for the future?
Hi,
Hi,
Crystal.
Katie.
In California, things are just changing from city to city. It seems like our state is so big that every chapter has something totally different that they're dealing with. Right now, our chapter is planning for virtual everything, probably through, well, at least the first quarter of 2021. So that's been huge to try to reschedule, and then we still don't get the approval to open up the venues. And so everything has pretty much had to be placed on pause for 2020.
And then do you think those virtual are going to extend? Is that going to become a part of the way you do things in the future?
Absolutely. We've had a lot of success with some of our new innovative virtual events. We're going to do our first virtual trade show in a couple of weeks, and we're super excited. We've taken advantage of some of the information that you from National have provided, and we listened in on the big major virtual trade show that you guys hosted a few weeks back. And I'm speaking on behalf of the LA chapter right now because I'm a part of that chapter too. But hopefully Orange County, we're going to learn from their experience. And yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah, we have another virtual trade show session coming up on Friday. The North Carolina chapter is the first chapter that we're aware of that has successfully completed a trade show. So they're going to kind of share some tips and tricks with us, as well as kind of the good, bad, and the ugly, so everybody else can learn from them. So presidents and CEDs, and I think President-elects as well, have all received that invitation to join. We'll be recording that as well if you're interested in that.
Yes. From Pennsylvania.
Hey, Greg.
How you doing?
I'm well.
It's bittersweet. We had what I think was probably our last in-person event of the year on July 30th. We had a networking event at a local zoo. We had about 40 people, masks, social distancing, the whole deal. It went very well. But shortly thereafter, we made a decision as a board to cancel all in-person events for the rest of the year. We too have a virtual trade show lined up for September 9th and 10th. All our board meetings are still virtual. Frankly, they work very efficiently. I mean, I could see them moving on, especially since our board, many of them are driving from distance to attend board meetings. The one thing we could use some help, and there is some uncertainty about right now, is we have an annual membership meeting / awards gala. It's going to be in December, and we're still trying to feel things out. I just got a notice from my president-elect. We do have a golf outing coming up in October. So we could use a little thought or guidance or just war stories on how to conduct the large-scale meeting with our members.
Has anyone on the call? I think most chapters have their annual awards / annual meeting between like November and February seem to be the big times of year. But has anybody had any kind of awards or annual meeting where you change officers during this time?
We haven't had our annual meeting or holiday gala. We kind of combined the two in Minnesota, but we're talking about doing that. We usually do it in December, and we're talking about and planning to do some sort of a banquet online. But to get to Greg, your other, just to speak a bit, we did actually have our annual golf tournament. We did actually proceed with that. So if you want to talk offline, or if anyone else wants to talk about how that went, let me know, because that was the first kind of in-person event that we have done as a chapter. But in terms of
and Thanks for sharing that, Josh. Tim, your executive director, did a session that we also have recorded. So if anybody's doing a golf outing, there's some great tips there. And thank you, Josh, for volunteering for anyone to reach out to talk with you all. There was people, the executive directors really enjoyed that session and got a lot out of it. So if anybody's working towards that, that's a great one. Josh, have you, so you said you're going to do a virtual kind of awards annual meeting. Have you talked any specifics yet?
We haven't, no. We
Okay.
just made the decision as a chapter just to say, we're not going to engage in hotel contracts right now. We're just going to look to plan towards doing something virtually. So that could change, but that was where our discussion was last left.
Our philosophy, I think our strategy has been to get through this year and do everything we can to maintain the vitality of the chapter. We did our golf outing the end of July, and that went very well. We had 80 golfers sign up, and the event went well. We're really glad that we're able to make that happen. We have a couple other potential live events, and I think the philosophy is that as live events come up, we're hoping to maintain them. We have an event scheduled in northern Michigan. Actually, it had been scheduled closer to Labor Day, but now we've pushed that to the middle of October, hoping that by that time we'll have some other definition in terms of how we could meet in person and make that happen. So that's the plan now. And then we're also talking about some sort of holiday gathering in December that will be a matter of getting together and said, we made it. Within that construct is the recognition that all other sorts of things that are happening, education sessions and that, we're doing them via Zoom and things like that. So the hybrid is going on in Michigan, and I think it's going well. Things are loosening up ever so slowly in Michigan, but it's been a very gradual process, and people are figuring out how to get these things done through various means that allow personal participation. We have client associations that are having meetings outside, maintaining social distancing. And I think that there's a certain desire, a willingness to make that happen that is born of a long period of confinement here.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were nailed down really well for three and a half months here. So
Can I ask him a question?
Yeah, please go ahead, Katie.
So I've noticed from the correspondence that we're getting of late that the business partners are just ready to roll out the gate, but the management side is showing much more resistance to wanting to get out. Anybody else see that?
I see that, Katie.
Yeah, we've seen that. We just had a meeting the other day, and the business partners were pushing to come and visit management companies, but management companies are pretty much closed up.
Right. Okay.
They're not gathering their staffs in their offices. They're working from home.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, Crystal,
Go ahead,
I
Mike.
want to mention something else that's obviously changed. We're all doing these meetings by Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if our committee meetings are not going to be Zoom based from now on in a lot of cases. Atlanta has a significant commuting problem.
Got it.
Our vice president-elect, Lisa Turner, and our offices are over an hour apart. So going to a meeting at the other's office makes a 1 hour meeting into a 3 hour time slot minimum.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we had already had committee members requesting to participate in committee meetings via telephone.
Yeah.
So there's already some momentum. There was momentum in that direction last year and the year before. So I'm wondering if we're not going to see a lot of committee activity in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you, unless it's things like stuffing bags for the golf outing or things like that where you physically need to be together. But I think it's a great use of time. Our team has been using video for quite some time. And, I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel like it's so much more effective than being on the phone. To be able to at least see people's mannerisms and expressions and stuff versus on the phone, and you don't know if they're listening or typing or whatever. So it's been super helpful.
Well, I think a lot of people have upgraded their capabilities too, where we did not have the ability for everybody to be in a video environment.
Yeah.
I mean, I know our company, we gave everybody video capabilities when this started. So
Yeah.
Just the infrastructure, I think, has changed a lot. And
Absolutely.
the software is a lot better too now. A lot more choices, better software.
Yeah, and like Zoom in particular, the reason we've stuck with Zoom is they seem to be advancing faster than some of the other platforms. We've used other platforms within CAI, but Zoom seems to be advancing and something that everybody's familiar with. So, what about when you're having these virtual events? I've heard some chapters say, we're getting so many more people, or we're getting people that we would never have driven to an event. Or is that a common thing you guys are having, and how can we sustain that portion of it for the future, keep those people engaged?
Crystal?
Hey, Mike.
Hi, Crystal. What we are doing, we've seen an increase in attendance because of Zoom, and our plans moving forward are to have, once we get back to in-person, we have our first live event on October 2nd, which is a Corks for Clack, a wine tasting buffet event with some education component to it to raise money for our clack. We'll see how that goes. We are still planning to have that on October 2nd outside. So that'll be our first, and shortly thereafter, we'll have our golf outing. So we'll see how that goes. So hopefully it'll be as good as Minnesota and Michigan. But I think our board has thought about having a combination of in-person and Zoom, both. And many of our HOAs in this area have seen an increase in attendance of homeowners by having the Zoom. So a lot of our HOAs are going to have Zoom even when they go back to in-person. So I think we're all comfortable with Zoom, like you said. Also, what's nice is a lot of people are having Zoom happy hours with their friends. I mean, and that people are getting very comfortable with Zoom. So I think it's here to stay for a while, honestly. And we've had people, at least homeowners, that have said they're attending the board meetings, the open session board meetings more by having Zoom because they're in Canada or they're someplace else, or they don't feel like driving over or whatever now that we don't have it in person. But I think we're going to keep Zoom, and I think our committee meetings will be a combination of Zoom as well as in person. For those that can't attend, they'll attend via Zoom.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And I think it's a good way to reach people that we maybe haven't reached and continue to engage them, which also the more people you have engaged, the more business partners are also going to want to invest to reach those people as well. And I'm sorry, somebody else was starting to talk.
Steve Roseman. Hi, Crystal.
Hey,
how you doing?
Steve.
I must tell you, obviously for Channel Islands, we go almost close to Central Valley. Our area that we cover is so extensive that we've hosted events from the south side of our location, far north, and we found that a lot of people that normally wouldn't attend because they're so far north are actually getting on the Zoom calls. So it's been tremendous. I mean, our numbers are just growing. So that's been very effective. The big debate we don't know the answer to, and Mike briefly alluded to this, is when we do finally have people in person attending, whether it's going to be spread out, let's say, sitting socially distant apart, so we only have 50 people as against the normal 200 or whatever, and we have Zoom combination, it's going to be interesting on the fee structure because we're not paying for their lunch and they may not attend in person because they prefer Zoom. We don't know how that's going to play out. Do we say the first 50 get to attend? And here's the big issue. If we're going to have in-person vendors doing their displays and setting up, it's not fair to them to only have 50 people. If we're on a Zoom call with the rest of attendance, how do they get their money's worth? It's more effective for them if it's on all Zoom to do the breakout rooms, which I know Coachella Valley has been spectacular at those breakout rooms, where the vendor comes in and speaks to a group of, let's say, 10 or 15 people and gets a 3-minute slot to present and then goes to the different rooms. That's where we're uncertain yet. And I'd be curious to hear how other people think they can address that sort of hybrid combination.
Really good thoughts.
Yeah.
Has anybody else done hybrid? I know some of our chapters have explored that, but I'm not sure how they're managing like the exhibitor or sponsor exposure.
Crystal, we've done a hybrid in Michigan,
Okay.
and it was an experiment. And everybody, I think, understood that, but it was like, let's explore this and see how we can make it happen. And again, we always stress when we're reaching out and trying something new, that this is okay. This is how we grow, and just get that message out there. And people, I think, do buy into it, because we're seeing participation go up quite a bit here too. But I think that my view of this right now is that we will need to progress to, rather than just having a Zoom background, if you're going to do the hybrid, I believe that you need to kind of take a television studio approach, where the presentation of the Zoom will show the live audience there. So, and that, we tinkered with that at that meeting. We had some success with that. But the idea is then, you capture the energy of the live audience by having the Zoom participants being able to see that. You also
Great idea.
create some envy because they're only seeing it on the screen, but wouldn't it be cool to be right up there in the front row with the live audience? So that's a kind of development, and this meeting just took place a couple of weeks ago. So, we're looking at all the aspects of that, figuring how to improve it, as we do with every new thing that we're doing here. But
yeah, there's so much experimentation right now, which is scary and exciting, and so that's why I love these calls, because I always learn something new from you all. So I think we need to continue to share that stuff.
Hey, Crystal, it's Vishnu.
Yes. Hey, Vishnu.
So a few things. One, I chair a committee for the Florida Institute of CPAs, and about 2 years ago, we have an annual conference every year for CPAs that practice in the field, and we get about 250 CPAs that practice in the field of condo HOA accounting. And 2 years ago, they gave a mandate from the FICPA that all of the subsections, of which we're one, had to host these classes, which are live, but we also had to have a virtual component. So we're 3 years into this now, and this year they're going to just do it virtually. They have no choice. But we've been doing it where it's been live and virtual. So we saw some attendance numbers go down, at least on the first year, where from 220 the previous year, we probably went down to about 150. But we saw the virtual numbers at about 100, 125. So we actually had total overall membership between virtual and live be larger than we'd ever had previously when we looked at it together. And the way they set it up is the camera was focused on the speaker. So you could actually pay one price separately and view the content of the person speaking and whatever the content was, versus being there in person. And they made the cost of that almost the same as if you were there live and in person. The difference being, when you're live and in person, you got food and things like that with it. So they kind of backed out those costs, but they pretty much kept the costs pretty much the same because they didn't want to encourage people to go online versus. Overall, from our chapter here in the Southeast Florida, we've obviously been virtual. I mean, South Florida right now is a hotbed. As I tell anybody who asks, we went from 631 cases before we reopened a day at the end of May to hitting a high of something like 15,000 a day a few weeks back. We are still just under 5,000 a day. And unfortunately, in the last week, we hit a record every day of the number of deaths of about 120 a day in just the state. I mean, it's pretty crazy. You know, school's starting back in a couple weeks. My son's private school that he goes to is actually doing the exact same thing, where they are going to have live class, but they're going to have virtual. They've wired every classroom with a camera so that the child can attend and view the live class being taught. So if you want to attend in person, you can. It just kind of goes back to the whole concept of offering both. As to what our chapter is going to do going forward, we have our elections coming up at the end of November. And right now, we would normally have that live in person as part of a breakfast. We haven't made any decisions. We're kind of waiting to see where things are going to go in the next couple months and pull the trigger at the last moment. As far as the Zoom stuff, it is definitely going to become part of our portfolio going forward. We don't see it replacing the socials. I think the one thing everybody in the chapter right now is craving is that interaction, that ability to network and just meet and get together, because, you know, for a number of us in this, we may deal with each other on a regular basis, but we don't ever get the chance to see each other. And I think, you know, for a lot of us in the chapter, we're 500 members. So, you know, that puts us mid-size or wherever it is, but it's super important just to have that face-to-face. The comment I've gotten from some of our business partners is that they teach the classes and we're having 2 and 3 times the volume online that we would have in person. If we get 70 people at a class normally in person, we're getting 150 to 210 virtually on the Zoom calls, but they're not getting the same stickiness that they would normally get. And that's the comment that I've gotten from some of the business partners. They're not just getting that same, people are coming, they're attending, they're getting that great, but they're not getting the opportunity to network, to kind of close the deal, or at least get that opportunity for the first phone call.
Vishnu, I have a follow-up question from what you said, because I'm Melanie in Rocky Mountain chapter, and so we're going to do our first kind of hybrid at our mountain conference, which is coming up. Hopefully that is still occurring, but when you, I really like the idea of not charging too much less for the virtual, but if somebody signs up for in-person, do they still have the opportunity to attend, like they would still have the link to the virtual session?
Yeah.
The reason I think that is, I think there's so many times where even myself, I sign up for something comes up in the office and I can't make the drive to get there, but I would still love to be there because I still have the 12 to 1 o'clock blocked out on my calendar, but I just don't have the 11 to 12 to drive there any longer.
Yeah, so the challenge that we faced with the committee on coming up with the plan of how we do this was, we accepted that what would happen is somebody does it virtually, they're probably going to have multiple people there. So you pay for the one session, you put it up on the screen, and you might have your staff, you know, sit in and watch. So we're losing those, you know, those additionals or those add-ons. But we were accepting that we were going to get a larger volume of people being able to attend who would not be willing to take the drive out or miss 2 full days out of work for the sessions that we were particularly having. Because it's like 16 hours of CEU over 2 days the way we do it. To answer your question specifically though, if you signed up in person, you sign up in person. If you signed up to do it virtually, in virtual. If you needed to swap, you had to reach out to effectively the CED that we would have for FICPA, and they would make the switch for you. But we didn't give you a link for both. If you were live, you were live, because we didn't want there to be, I give it to you live and I also give you the link so somebody else could use your link to come on as well.
As far as sponsorship goes, that's been a big conversation with the executive directors and how they plan for the future. I just wanted to let you all know that we have started a Google Doc with our executive directors to share ideas, and I want you to be aware of that. So when you're talking about sponsorships for 2021, that you can have the executive director refer to that. We're hoping to gather all kinds of information, because the struggle I think many of you are having is, do we do our sponsorship program or marketing plan the same way, or do we include a virtual component as well? So there's some good ideas that are being gathered there, and I encourage the executive directors to keep looking at that.
Hey, Crystal, this is Steve Mason here in South Florida as
Hey,
well.
Steve.
How you doing?
Good.
Yeah, to piggyback on everything Vishnu said, and now you mentioned the sponsors that feel they're not getting the benefit of what they paid at the beginning. We've had to cancel almost every event this year. So as the incoming president for next year, you know, we have all the president-elects have the daunting task of, okay, how do we go back to some sort of normalcy and slowly progress into this hybrid situation we're talking about? And as Vishnu said, I think the CE classes, Zoom classes have been fantastic. Obviously, that's going to continue. But I'm looking forward to ideas to help those chapter sponsors. Feels like, you know, if we don't have to, I mean, we're going to try to have a golf event at the end of the year. We've had some challenges because clubs have canceled events on us. But if we have no events going into 2020, it's kind of seeing how we can add value to the chapter sponsors to keep them not entertained, but keep sponsoring our chapter year over year. And that seems to be the challenge. And that's one of the things I was looking for on this call too. And everybody's got some great ideas. But I'm looking ahead as, again, the incoming president on how we can face that, as you know, and that's going to be, for me, one of the hottest topics when we do our strategic planning meeting is satisfying those chapter sponsors that have essentially not been satisfied. And Vishnu came up with some great ideas, and we're trying to give spotlights on certain chapter sponsors. But I think there's still going to be a handful of those that are, oh, we want our money back and that type of thing. So it's a challenge to face.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right, Steve. I'm glad you're thinking ahead, and that is one reason we included the president-elects on this call, because it's no longer just the 2020 presidents. This is certainly going into 2021 and going to affect us maybe even beyond that. So as far as sponsorship, I think, you know, between these calls and the executive director calls, we just have to continue to share and be as creative as possible. One thing that I think is incredibly valuable that a lot of chapters did early on is reach out either individually, have the board members reach out to those sponsors and talk with them about what they need, what they want, what they'd like to see, just that personal connection. And then I've heard some as of late having calls like this with all of their sponsors to kind of have a collective crowdsourcing of, you know, would you like to have a trade show outside? Would that work? Would you be interested in, you know, what if you got a video spotlight on Zoom or that sort of thing, to kind of run ideas by them. So that's just a little bit to start there. Does anybody else have anything to share about how you're looking at 2021? Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a subcommittee of our board that's doing our long-range planning, and we just had a couple of meetings. And one of the things we learned by having these sponsors advertising during the Zoom education classes, and ours are mostly Ask the Attorney classes, is that a lot of the sponsors that we have are mom and pop companies who really don't have the marketing tools. And really, you know, they can answer questions, but if there are no questions, they have trouble with a 30-minute, a 3-minute or a 2-minute, even a 30-second spot. So we decided we're going to have a Zoom class for our sponsors to teach them and get a professional to teach them how to give a 2-minute or 1 minute or however long they want to give a outline and how they should do it. We've had some very good ones, but we've got some really terrible ones as well. And they haven't seen the benefit. They're not getting the business.
Sure,
So
that makes total sense.
We need to get it. So we thought we're going to hire, I don't know if we have to hire or we can find an expert that'll do it for nothing, but we're going to get somebody to speak to our sponsors to help them, because we think this virtual thing is going to go on for a while.
Yeah, no, I love that idea, Mike. That's a great idea, because you're right. A lot of people don't know how to sell on Zoom. And that's going to be important for everyone for the long haul.
Hi guys, it's Lori in Western Oregon.
Hi, Lori.
So one thing we just started working on, as we had a reverse trade show scheduled for September, and we're thinking, gosh, we sure don't want to cancel this and have to look at, you know, refunding all that money. So we came up with an idea of doing like a tailgating idea. And actually, we were lucky enough, it looks like the vendor of where we were going to hold the venue is willing to let us kind of use the parking lot. So we're going to set up management companies spread out throughout the parking lot and kind of have all the different business partners walk through and be able to visit with managers, you know, kind of face to face at a distance. We're going to hopefully set up a ice cream social distancing station. So we're hoping to be able to salvage that event by doing it that way. We really think that everyone's kind of craving some kind of, you know, physical connection in person, and we're hoping that's going to work for everybody.
Going back to the virtual annual meetings, why don't we on our next call talk a little bit more about that? Because I think all of you are going to be approaching that at that time. So at least you can have this on your radar of, okay, you know, we got to think about how we're going to do this and then come back and share next time for everybody else. Because I think many of you are going to be going into that season here in the next couple of months. As far as your board and committees go, are your boards you've said your boards and committees are meeting mostly on Zoom. Are they focused still on the immediate put out the fire, or are they starting to look to the future like Steve mentioned?
Crystal, I'll share about that.
Thanks, Hope.
This is Hope Carmichael from North Carolina, and we I will say about committees that it took us a while to engage committees because everybody was so busy in their own personal job putting out fires. And it really took some focus on the part of, really it's our CED who plants great seeds for us, but we have a great strategic plan and we fell back on that strategic plan. So we have got the committees refocused on looking at the future, but it was a challenge, and I'll just share that the way that we found to do that was to find a concrete small bite. Like I almost had to plant a seed of an idea to get them going instead of giving them such a nebulous, let's think about the future. You know, I said, here's a connection that would be great to think about for next spring. And that I just would encourage everybody to think more concretely. And once you give them kind of an attainable goal, they took off and they are focused on the future. But my experience was, and this kind of goes to your flexibility and mental health, the last on the agenda, we had to do that probably to save the mental health of our CED, and we have an assistant, and they were just working overtime on trying to get us to focus on the future, and we had to figure out a way to do it. So
yeah, I think the as you were speaking, to me I was thinking your committees and volunteers almost need permission to start thinking ahead again. You know, I think we've all gotten so in the habit of, oh my God, what's happening right now? The whole world is changing, and how do I get my feet flat on the ground? And once somebody says, well, let's think about what does March look like, or even what does December look like, they're like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about that. And that's a really valid point that you made, Hope, is that you almost have to plant that seed and give them permission to start thinking ahead again.
And let me, I'll just give you a concrete idea because I also have a question.
Sure.
Somebody mentioned a holiday idea, and we did just finish. Many of you will hear about our annual conference on Friday, but we kind of got that out of the way. And what we realized is that everybody was starving for the social interaction, even though it was online. And that blew me away, how much fun everybody was having. It's like we were just worried about pulling it off. And what you realized is everybody was having a great time. And so that put us in the mind to do nothing but a holiday fun. We're going to find some virtual online games, and managers love winning prizes. And that's what we're focused on. I am determined to have some kind of delivery of alcohol or food or a swag bag with sponsor, you know, all the things that people pick up at a live trade show. And I think that makes Leslie Bloom crazy, because I just think we ought to be able to pull that off. And I'm wondering if anybody has done that kind of delivery of, I've heard some things like a DoorDash gift card, lunch and learns. But
is anybody from Houston on the call? We just got something that Houston is doing, like a swag bag type thing that they're delivering to people, that is going to have stuff from their different sponsors or exhibitors. I'm not sure which. I have heard, and Kelly, jump in, that there are like different companies that will basically collect all of the tchotchkes, if you will, from your business partners and box them up and send them to your attendees.
California North, they just did one as well that they sent out.
The California chapters, and if anybody's on here that's aware of this, they're doing their California Legal Forum, but the northern chapters are heading it up, which is typically a separate event in the state, and they always have an after party. And so with this, they're having people that register for the after party are getting a bottle of wine with things to pair with the wine, and they're going to have an online wine tasting. We can try to find out how they're facilitating that as well, because I have heard a couple of different things for either like a pickup type situation where everybody comes to this winery or whatever and picks up, which isn't feasible if you have a large geographic area. But I've also heard like of a delivery type situation as well. So I think there's lots of options out there, and I love that idea, because what a great way for your sponsors to get in front of attendees. I hope I don't get in trouble for giving this away, but our CEO MC retreat, which any of you who are CEOs of management companies, I hope you sign up for our first virtual CEO MC retreat. But our marketing people are working with our sponsors to come up with some different types of giveaways. One of the things that they came up with is a ring light that with their logo on it. And a ring light is basically a light that shines, that makes you look a little better on Zoom with your coloring, etc. Karen has one. I happen to have recessed lighting right above my head, so that's my ring light. But things that people can use going into, or continuing into this virtual way of doing business. So those might be some cool ideas to think about for some of your larger sponsors that are willing to, invest in the community. Microphones, like headsets with microphones, would be another.
The little Logitech USB
cameras.
webcam.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Or even like even something little like the little covers for your webcam. I have a really fancy one. It's a yellow Post-it note, but they have logo branded ones that, like everybody needs those things now, right? So different than your Post-its and your pens and stuff that we're not using in the same way anymore. Hope alluded to Leslie, her CED and staff, about the staff's mental health. And I just wanted to mention to those of you who have staff going into the school year, some of our CEDs have small children and they're stressed about how it's all going to work, on top of trying to create these events that are completely different than what they've done before. And just a reminder to you all to take the time to thank them. They're all working incredibly hard. And I know you know that, and you all get busy with your jobs and taking care of your staff teams professionally. We're doing that on our end, but they're feeling it. We're starting to see it on camera, that they're looking a little tired, for lack of a better word. So we just encourage you to help them out and encourage them to take breaks. I know that's been incredibly helpful for our staff team, even if it's just to take an afternoon off to be outside with their dog or their kids or whatnot. So are there anything that you all would like to share that you've either done for your staff, either CEAI staff or your professional staff, that might be helpful? A simple simple things, you know, even if it's a Grubhub gift card, you know, for lunch one day, you know, or something that it doesn't have to be expensive, but just to let them know that you're thinking of them, you know, tell them to, you know, take an afternoon off, that they deserve it, you know, whatever it may be. You all know your staff and you know what's important to them. You know, and if you don't, that's okay too, especially if you're a president-elect and are just starting to get involved, you know, ask them, what can I do for you? What can I do to help you make sure that you're continue to be successful when, you know, starting school online and doing your trade show and whatever else may be. There's just a lot going on and we're all dealing with that. So I think supporting each other is very helpful.
Crystal, I was going to say really quick, speaking as a mom with kids at home and they're about to start school, potentially virtually, all of that good stuff. I just want to say one of the things that you guys have done that's been really meaningful, and maybe, you know, you guys could think about it at the chapter level, is to start the conversation with your CED about what that will look like, you know, if they're going virtually, because they might be scared to ask, you know, for flexibility or something like that. I kind of was, and then, but having, you know, our CEO say, you know, we're going to work with you, and having Crystal say, you know, we will be flexible, you know, maybe that looks like you work really early in the morning and then you take a break to do school and then you go back to work in the afternoon. So I would say, don't wait for them to have that conversation with you because they may be nervous about it, and start that conversation with them.
That's really good advice, Emily. Any wrap up comments, questions while we're all together? A few resources, I'm clicking to my next screen here, that I just want to remind you all of. We're still continuing to update our coronavirus webpage, so there's lots of great information the chapters can use there. And then we also have our CAI exchange. You probably get daily emails from the members one, but we also have a group for chapter presidents and president-elects and a separate one for executive directors and staff. So it's a great way to continue conversations with each other, to ask each other questions about how you're planning for your annual holiday ball or whatever that may be, in between these conversations. And then I also wanted to add, we have a chapter leader online toolkit. You have to be logged into the website to access this page, but it's available for presidents, president-elects, and executive directors. And we have tons of downloadable resources, templates, policies, ideas, the videos that we reference, etc. And we want to continue to add to that so that you can access that information whenever you need it. So, you know, feel free when you're looking for something to go there. If it's not there, let us know, because we would love to develop something to help you all. You know, really, we've just, in the last several months in particular, we've been able to really add a lot of what we feel is valuable content, and we want to continue to do that. And so please, you know, continue to give us feedback on these sessions and resources we're providing, because we want to spend our time on what's most valuable to you all. Well then, thank you everybody for coming today. We really appreciate it. Again, we hope the conversation's helpful, and we encourage you to continue that conversation. And feel free to reach out to any of us in between, and have a great rest of your summer. I'll see you after Labor Day.